Hi, today I would like to discuss with you mystery cults. I would like to talk about the social and religious environment in which Christianity sprouted for everybody to have a little bit of a better understanding of why Christianity was so successful. So I would like to start by perhaps thinking about what religion was like in the Greco-Roman world. If you remember, if there were cults that were individual, or where they were collective, if there was like a scripture people used for guidance, if these gods in the pagan world would demand specific moral behavior, if they had a specific moral behavior themselves, and if the Romans thought of an afterlife existed, and what about the Greeks? So I don't know, you probably remember the statue of Athena. So you should remember these religions as religions of the collective, religions of the community, in which everybody brings together, performs rituals together to ensure the prosperity of the whole city. And sometimes, for instance, in the case of Athens, you had a deity that protects the community, has a name, right, of the community, or the community's name after this deity, Athens and Athena. Um, so you see that they are very, very connected, right? And these religions are religions of the state or religions of the polis. Um, is virtue important for the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans? You've been reading and watching documentaries about the ideas of luxury, the ideas of deprivation. Of course, the Greeks and the Romans and all the ancient peoples were very concerned with the idea of virtue, and they wrote extensively about it. But for them, this was not a religious concern. It was a concern of ethics, if you want. So their gods did not impose a certain moral behavior, and uh, the idea of punishment on account of your virtue was not as strictly linked as it is, for instance, in Christianity. Um, Even though in terms of communal failure, some communities would say, well, we have lost the war because we did something wrong, we were not courageous, we were not virtuous, and the gods punished us. So that exists as well. But let's say there is no like a code of moral behavior that the gods provide to the community and the community has to follow. So you have a little bit of several differences here. I would like to talk about the oldest mystery cults in the ancient world, and one of them is the cult of Dionysus. So we are going to see a little bit, very briefly, what the cult of Dionysus is about, and you probably have heard the word a bacchanal, right? This ecstasy that is associated with Dionysus, the consumption of wine, the menads or bacchanals. The word menad in Greek has to do with the word mania, maniac, priestesses that go in the mountains in the middle of the night and dismember animals and eat them raw. So all this has to do with the cult of Dionysus. Dionysus is a very important uh, divinity in Athens. Is the god that protects theater. Is a god that dilutes boundaries, personal boundaries. Is the god of the theater, in which you, instead of being yourself, you become somebody else. Um, but what I would like to focus on is on Dionysus as a god of fertility. Dionysus is the personification of the cycle of nature. He represents, is associated, of course, with the vines and with the production of wine. So it's a god that resurrects every spring and dies every winter. In the festivals of Dionysus, these phalloi or phalluses were carried as a symbol of the fertility of the god. And the story of Dionysus Zagreus is a story of rebirth. Yeah. Dionysus was killed as a little baby or child. He was killed by the Titans as he was trying to escape from them. They capture him and they dismember him. And this is what the Maenads actually reenact in their rituals. Zeus, who of course is the father of Dionysus, gets really, really upset and kills the Titans. And from the blood of those killed Titans, the human race is born, according to one tradition of Greek mythology. Uh, Hera, Zeus' wife, is very upset because Zeus has had Dionysus with Semele, who is another mortal woman, so she gets her killed. But Dionysus manages to bring her back from Hades. So, as you can see, there are several ideas here about resurrection. Dionysus is a god that has died, but he comes back to life. His mother dies, but Dionysus brings us back to life. Um, so, in all of these, we have the idea of death and rebirth. We have the idea, of course, of wine, and the dismemberment of the body of Dionysus is the actual process of making wine. And what is the blood of the god? The blood of the god is, of course, the wine itself. And what happens when we consume the wine? We commune with the divinity. We have the divinity within us. And this is the ritual of the drinking of the wine. So, as you can see, there is a lot of uh, um, similarities between the cult of Dionysus and Christianity. And this is important because what I'm trying to explain is how would the message of Jesus resonate in the minds of these pagan people? Would they understand the message? Was this message so original that they wouldn't be able to understand it? And I think the answer is no. I think they would understand it because they already believed a lot of things that had a common ideology with Christianity. So you have an idea of an original sin in the human race because the Titans are the ancestors of the human race. Therefore, indirectly, the humans have killed the god. You have a god that uses wine and a communal meal, and then a god that is reborn. The Romans also practice the cult of Dionysus. So all these frescoes come from a villa in the city of Pompeii. As you can see here, there is perhaps what this woman is about to reveal is the phallus, which is the power of Dionysus. Uh, but I would like to bring to your attention this scripture because as opposed to the cult of Zeus or Athena, in which the whole city participates, it's a communal thing. The mystery cults are called mysteries because they are only for the mystes. That means the initiates, the people who have adopted this as their creed. And there is indeed a creed, and there is a dogma that they do need to adhere to. So this is a mystery cult because it's just for those who belong. It's not open to the community. It's not open to everybody. Um, Another important follower of this cult of Dionysus is Orpheus, another mythical figure. Orpheus is here singing to the animals. He's singing because he is very sad. He is very sad because his wife, Eurydice, has just been bitten by a snake and she has died. And she's crying and singing to the point that the divinities of Hades, right, Hades and Persephone, take pity on him and allow him to take Eurydice back as long as he doesn't turn his head to see, to look at her as they are coming out of Hades. And as you can guess, of course, he turns back. And of course, Eurydice turns again into a ghost and goes back to Hades. And remember that Hades, for the people in ancient Greece and Rome, is this very shady place. It's not paradise, it is not hell, it is just the negation of life, where people are just sad ghosts of what they used to be, and they are really sad because they are deprived from the light of life. So ultimately, Orpheus doesn't get Eurydice back, but just the fact that he's a mortal who managed to go back in Hades and back up, or come back from Hades, makes him a very powerful figure that embodies the idea of resurrection. So this is another cult or ideology that we need to take into account when understanding Christianity. Another mystery cult that was very, very popular in the Roman Empire, that was a favorite for the Roman legionnaires, the Roman military, was the cult of Mithras. Mithras is an Oriental a figure. He's also a god of resurrection. He is also a god that has an older god as a father. This is Helios, the father of Mithras. Um, and in the act of killing this bull inside of this cave, he ensures the fertility and resurrection of everybody, the resurrection of nature. The church, if you want, for the followers of Mithras was called a Mithrium. Mithrium, and these Mithriums were in caves or in underground structures, and this is where they would gather. As part of the gathering, there would be a communal meal, and the initiates had to go through a series of steps. There was a hierarchy, and the steps had each one of them is named after a god. This would be Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Mercury, and so on until you reach the state of Saturn. You become like a priest of Mithras. Interesting. The birthday of this divine figure Mithras is not January 1st or June 22nd. It is December 25th. Of course, this is going to resonate also with Christianity. There is, of course, a lot of dispute of, regardless this date, who thought about this first. Is this the actual birth of Christ, or Christians appropriated the birth of Mithras to gain over the followers of Mithras? But we don't know. So this cult of Mithras was very, very popular. Again, there is the idea of resurrection, there is a communal meal, and this cult spread throughout the empire because the legionnaires were, of course, all over the place, to the point that there is a Mithraeum in the city of London today. We have found one. So it is very spread out. Another very popular cult at the time of early Christianity is the cult of Isis. And you have studied Isis before when we studied Egypt. So this is the Egyptian Isis, but we have a Hellenistic Isis. And you can see here, I call her a Roman Isis, but as you can see, she's dressed in a Greco-Roman fashion. And the cult of Isis became very, very popular also in the Roman Empire. The city of Pompeii has a temple of Isis, and it had many followers. So, what type of goddess is Isis? Well, Isis is also a goddess of fertility, but she is overall, most of all, a goddess of resurrection. Before Isis became the mother of little Horus, her husband Osiris, of course, you know him as from the judgment of Osiris and the weighing of the heart in Egyptian religion. He is the god of the underworld. How did he become the world of the underworld? Well, he got killed. He got killed by Seth, and his body was dismembered, like the body of Dionysus, and spread out throughout the desert. And his wife Isis was when pick up all the pieces, put the god back together. He was missing one piece. That piece was the sexual organ. He was missing his penis. But uh, of course, Isis was able to put him back together and recreate a penis and conceive with him a son. And the son is going to be Horus, and Horus is going to be the avenger. He's going to kill Seth. So as you can see, Isis is a very powerful goddess. It's a goddess that can ensure resurrection and fertility even beyond death. So she becomes also an intercessor because she's the wife of Osiris, the son, the god of the underworld. And she's a very motherly goddess. And as I'm sure that you can understand how this is very attractive to a segment of the population, that is women. Isis was also a patroness of sailors, so her cult spread out throughout the empire. One thing that you should have noticed by now as I'm talking is the cult of Dionysus is a cult that transcends boundaries. So it's going to be a cult that attracts slaves, that attracts the outcasts of the society. Same happens with the cult of Isis, a cult that is very attractive to women. And of course, the cult of Mithras is very attractive to another big segment of the population, that is the Roman soldiers. So what you're gonna see here is a lot of um, lower class people attracted by these cults that promise a better life. Um, the image of Isis is very commonly compared with the images of Mary. Um, Images of breastfeeding Mary may be shocking to you, but they were so popular in the Middle Ages. When I went to Florence a couple of years ago, I took several pictures of these little altars in the middle of the streets, and many of them had images of Mary breastfeeding Jesus. And this signifies that, of course, she's the mother of God and she's a great intercessor. So if you pray to Mary, you can get a word or a good word with God. If you want to see a breastfeeding Mary nearby, you can go to San Agustin here in Florida and go to the little church inside the Catholic mission of Our Lady of the Milk and Good Delivery, Nuestra Señora de la Leche y el Buen Parto. And as you can see, it is, if you want to see the tradition of these female deities, you can see perhaps the connection with the old Isis. So why are we discussing this? We are discussing this just to for everybody to understand when this when Christianity comes around, there are many people that already are in need of that type of message, understanding of that type of message, and practicing that type of message. So that makes Christianity understandable, palatable for this population. Um, Let me just see what are the things that perhaps are going to be more commonly shared. There's going to be a God that is dying and then is reborn. There is always a promise of immortality in all these mystery religions, and that is what they share with among themselves and with Christianity. There are dichotomies of the body and the soul. There is sin and there is reward, there is good and there is evil in all of them. And then there are rituals of initiation. In all these mystery cults, there is a baptism, there is an initiation, there is a communal meal. In many of these religions, the communal meal is done with wine and bread. Um, and then there is in some of them a female figure that serves as an intercessor with a greater divinity. And at the end of the day, there is a final judgment in which this intercessor can help you obtain a better outcome. So I will post this also as an independent presentation for everybody to have a better look. Let me know.